I'm David Mittell. I grew up at 6 Newsom Park, Jamaica Plain, and 35 Prince Street later. Arthur Nicholson brought and delivered me by taking Mother and me from 6 Newsom Park, where we lived at that stage of the game, to the Faulkner Hospital in his sleigh. All little boys wore knickers at that stage of the game, and not long pants, and not shorts. It was the step between shorts and longs. They were very uncomfortable. They bound you where the garter went under your knee. If a 7th grader came to school in long pants, the 8th graders would take the pants off and hoist them up the flagpole. My older brother was Harvard 34, I was 39. Jack Kennedy was a very genial, pleasant fellow, and obviously very bright and highly motivated. And he would come down the stairs and come into the dining room, and there were 3 steps that came down, and he'd look around and he'd come down and say, "Is it all right if I sit here?" And then he'd sit there, and it would be a very stimulating conversation. This was a very happy community in the 1880s and 1890s. Father's playmates and friends, and my aunt's girlfriends remained their friends all their lives. I think there were prejudices, but I don't think there were tensions. I think both sides were narrow and not quite ready to accept the other. Prejudice against the Protestants because they were better. They were going to be saved. And the Unitarians probably weren't going to be saved by their judgments. It was pretty much Irish Catholic on the south side of Center Street, down South Street, and pretty much WASP something on the other side of Center Street. There were breweries, that's right. But remember, they were dead from 1918 until 1933. The old man had a former engineer who was his bootlegger, and I'd hear a squeal of brakes, and the man would get out of his car and get into his car and bring in a crate of booze, which he would then put in the cellar window. And Father came home that night and said, "Good Lord, Edith, you'll find it no matter where I hide it, won't you?" This was the heyday of James Michael Curley, who was a great man, somewhat misdirected, probably. He accomplished a great deal for a lot of people in the city of Boston and lived in that great mansion. I once asked Father whether James Michael Curley was honest, and he said, "Look at his mansion. Do you think he could build that on a salary of $16,000 a year or some such figure as that?" Miss Marguerite Souther, heiress of a major estate on Allendale Street, ran dancing classes at Elliott Hall, and I went from the time I was 9 or 10 till I was through college. She lived directly in back of us when we lived on Newsom Park, and I simply went out and said, "Good morning, Miss Souther," because I lisped at that stage of the game, and she said, "Hello, David," in a very strong voice. And I said, "Hasn't Miss Souther got a funny voice, Mother?" And I don't think she did. She had a very dominant personality, which was necessary for all the things that she did. I had an older brother who was deeply interested in footlights, and my parents had footlight tickets, and at an early age I went to footlight plays. Mother called the Reverend Thomas Campbell of St. John's Church, who was our minister. Mr. Campbell is there a poor family in our church who could use an Easter basket full of food, or are they all in the Catholic churches? And Mr. Campbell said, oh yes, there's one down there on Washington Street. So Mother got a basket and filled it with a turkey and all the fixings, and we got in Father's 1930 Buick, which would reach almost from Plymouth to Boston. It was so big. It certainly smelled different than most houses I'd been in, so I assumed that was because it was poor. I think Lawrence McCoy made the statement that it's the exceptional person that makes a difference in the world, and that's what he was always looking for. And he was an exceptional person. He was a brilliant entrepreneur. I was brought up Republican and voted Republican until moderately recently, but I don't trust them at this stage of the game. I think they're dangerous. They're trying to protect a very conservative class, and I think that in international affairs that they're poking their nose in more than they should. They scare me. I think I'm a loyal citizen, but I wouldn't say that I'm a bombastic patriot. Patience, loyalty, humor. Equality. Find something good to do and do it very well, and the world will take care of itself. And do something eleemosynary. The world goes on.